Hello everybody and welcome back to another NuclearCraft Overhaul video. This time it's the first of, I think, 3 solid fuel reactor updates. This first one is going to be about the new ports and also about the filtering system for those ports. So remember last time we did a fission video. We had a design that I'd come up with. It's pretty cheap. But it used one type of fuel. I believe it used Lu-235 oxide. Yes, it did. And back then we had just normal fission ports. Now this is a fission fuel cell port, but it's unfiltered. So all of these cells, if we break up this reactor design quickly, you can see that, well, actually, when you go in here, actually all of the cells disconnect from the ports. You actually can't see the fuel in here. That's why it disappears. Well, that's why it's not there. But actually, there's no filter. You can give a filter to a cell by either shift-clicking with the valid fuel, and you can see that the filter goes in there as a sort of shadow. You can get rid of it by just shift-clicking with something else, or I believe you can actually put the fuel in there and take it out again. That removes the filter as well. You can also put a filter in by just right-clicking on the cell, and you can see that it sets the filter to the respective fuel. The same is also true for ports, so if you right-click on the cell, on the port with a fuel. Well, this actually got stuff in at the moment, so that didn't work. But I can actually, for example, take the fuel out of here and connect that, well, not connect it, but filter this fuel cell port using the Lu-233 nitride instead. Again, you can clear it, or well, actually I just replaced it there with oxide fuel pellet, and I can clear it in the same way. So these two cell ports, when the structure is destroyed, these two cell ports and all of the cells, as you saw when I looked into the GUI there, they all disconnect. They all completely disconnect, and only when the structure reforms will the cells and ports work out which is connected to each other. So all of the filters that match will be connected, and all of the filters that don't match will get connected to their separate groups. Now, an unfiltered cell or port will not be connected to filtered cells or ports. So unfiltered is a sort of type of filter where all unfiltered components will get linked together and not connected to other things. And similarly, all filtered ports will not get connected to the unfiltered ones. And so, for example, you could have an unfiltered cell port connection which accepts different fuels, for example, and they won't get entangled with the specifically filtered cells and ports. So, for example, if you had a filter for Lu-235 oxide, and then you also had an unfiltered port, but also accepting Lu-235 oxide, those two groups would not be connected because they actually have different filters, even though they might be using the same fuel. So let's just make sure again that we have all of these filters. They're fine and good. We can reconnect this all up, and hopefully that should have connected up there. Yes, this is the same. So if I take this Lu-235 oxide out of here, you should see some more just got put in there. So these are connected, and you can tell that all of the cells are connected as well because our reactor is running nominally again. All of these, I think 12 cells inside here are connected up to these 2 ports. The way it works internally is that actually what happens is that, first of all, there is a master port that actually holds the real inventory. Then all of the other ports with the same filter connect to that master port, and then all of the cells connect to that inventory as well. So there's one master port that holds the inventory, and then all the ports connect to that, and all of the cells connect to that as well. So that's unfiltered cells, and that's basically what we had last time. We were just using unfiltered cells and ports, and they were just working as they were before. But now we have filters. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a 2-fuel design. I usually just call them multi-fuel designs. You can have as many filters as you want. You can use all however many fuels there are. I know some people have tried to build such reactors in the planner. Big designs with different filters on the different cells and things, which is totally doable. So now in the Overhaul you can literally build reactors which have different fuels in them, a bit like the old MSRs. And of course the MSRs in the Overhaul will also be able to take different fuels as well. So I've built most of the structure here already. Well, not most of it. I've built the sort of shell of the structure already. I've got my sources in place, my radium sources. There are actually, by the way, if you look in here, more types of source. I'm not sure if we went through it last time. There's actually a polonium source and also a californium-252 source. Polonium has got through the irradiator, which the next video is going to be about, so look out for that. The reason you want to get a polonium source is because it has a better efficiency multiplier than the radium, and the CF252 is better still. And we've also got our vent here for accepting the water, and our vent for outputting steam. Now, vents are a little bit different in the latest version. You need a multi-tool, and if you right-click on the multi-tool, you can flip between output mode and input mode. I know that the text on output mode there is orange. It will be red in the next version, don't worry about that. In output mode, it will auto-output, so you don't need like a server or anything. So if you look over here, for example, on this turbine little system here, you can see this is just auto-outputting into this fluid duct into the turbine, because this is in output mode. It's a little bit difficult to see, but I can flip between them. There you go. Output mode. And I can do the same here, and I'm going to just dump all of the steam in this case, because I don't need to keep track of it. I don't really care. In fact, it's probably a good idea to put super laminar on here, because they can handle more fluid. I'll do it for all of these reactors, just because I will at some point anyway. Turn them all to output mode so that they're ready for the next videos. So now we're going to build this structure out. So this is just another design. I thought I'd record building the design because I think it's still new. To the whole sort of system we have here is still new. I've got all the blocks ready in this inventory. A lot of people were asking how I was switching between hotbars using like the Z button. I believe this is Quark. If it isn't Quark, correct me. I'm pretty sure it is Quark that adds this. By default it's the Z key, and it brings up this menu. You can hit 1, 2, or 3. It's very, very cool. So let's get started with this. So the first thing I need... Oh, actually, I've just realised something. I need to get something else in my inventory. I need to get some reflectors. This design includes reflectors. We haven't gone through reflectors in-game. I'm pretty sure I described reflectors in the original planner video, but we can now actually build them into a design. The last design I built over there did not have reflectors, so this one will. So that's going to be something slightly different. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing we need to do is get some sinks going. So down this corner. This design, by the way, I will share the link to in the pinned comment below this video. It's again, one of these cheap designs. I mean, I don't know if endstone is exactly cheap. They're pretty cheap. Once you get to the end, it's cheap, I suppose. But there's no crazy coolers. It's a very simple design. You can build much better designs. The reason I'm building simple designs and ones that use sort of the most basic level coolers is just because I think it's more fun if you guys work out the more exotic coolers and how to build the most exotic designs. Because what happened last time, I'm pretty sure I explained this last time, I built a tutorial design for the FTB wiki, and everyone just copied it. So I don't really want that to happen again. So I'm building something that's like purposely and explicitly basic, so that people have more incentivized to build something more interesting. So there's my endstone. Now I'm going to get my reflectors down. If you have watched the Overhaul video, great. If you haven't, or the Overhaul planner video, great. If you haven't, I recommend watching it. Reflectors, what they do, remember, is that they reflect back neutron flux through the moderator line. So for example, if you have a line involving 2 heavy water moderators, you have the normal total flux factor, which is 36 plus 36, which is 72. But then because the flux is coming back through the line again from the reflector, it gets multiplied by 2 to 72. There is also another type of reflector called the lead-steel neutron reflector, and you can see it has a reflectivity factor of 50%. That means that actually only 50% of that total reflected flux get through. So in the end what happens is that you then divide that 144 by 2 again because of this reflectivity factor, and then you'd end up with 72 again. Now, most of the time you shouldn't be using lead steel because it has this poor efficiency multiplier, but sometimes it will be worth using because you don't want to go over, for example, the overfluxing limit. If you go too far over double of the criticality factor of a fuel in flux, then the efficiency of that cell will be dramatically impacted. And so if you just want to squeeze a little bit more efficiency out but don't want to go over that limit, then play around with lead steel. I've built only, probably out of the dozens of designs that I've built, I've only ever, I think, used lead steel once. So a very, very niche case block, but they do sometimes appear and are useful. Anyway, so back to this design. I'm going to get my reflectors down here, which are going to be the end of moderator lines. So these go here. I've just realised, actually, that I'm building this the wrong way, because the reason I know that's wrong is because reflectors actually block neutron sources. So neutron sources are obviously don't contribute any flux, but it's still neutrons, and reflectors block them. So I just realised I was building that design the wrong way there. It should be like this instead. It should be this way around, and that way my design is such that the reflectors don't block the sources. So that was a bit of a close one. Okay, so I'm going to have to do some sort of mental arithmetic inside. Actually, it should be fine. It's fine. Don't worry. Okay, so what else have we got on this level? We've got some iron. Goes down like this, and here. So there's going to be an active moderator here, and that active moderator is heavy water. Heavy water is obviously the classic moderator used on reflected lines, just because the main reason you use reflectors a lot of the time is to just beef up the amount of flux that a cell is getting. And we're going to be using TBU zirconium alloy fuel. Now the TBU fuel has a huge criticality factor. So this one's 199. Some of the other types of TBU have even higher criticality factors, so it's really difficult to get to that stage, get it to be active without reflectors. And at first the base efficiency of TBU was a bit lower at about 105. I've beefed that up to 125 now, so that accounts for the fact that it's very difficult to set up. You're going to need a lot of heavy water in your TBU designs. And meanwhile, the second fuel we're going to be using is Lu-233 nitride, which is criticality factor of 98, so much sort of more standard fuel. So let's get our cells down now. Our cells go here. These are 4 of the 8 TBU fuel cells we're going to be using. The other 4 will go on that third layer. We've got graphite here. And remember, if you think about the mathematics of it, graphite is best to use on the non-reflected lines because the reflector has an efficiency factor of 50%. So that means that the heavy water will be cut down to 50%. The heavy water moderator line will be cut down to 50%. But if you use graphite, you'd basically be removing 55% of efficiency because the base efficiency multiplier of graphite is 110. So if you halve that, you're losing more efficiency than if you halve the efficiency of heavy water. So always try to use graphite on the lines which are not reflected, because that way you'll just get that little bit more efficiency out of your lines. And the rest of this is heavy water, because you do need enough heavy water to actually get the criticality up. Okay, so that's that. And now we need some water heat sinks. So the water heat sinks go next to the cells. Honestly, the way I build these really cheap designs, I mean, I say cheap, I mean basic designs using the most basic coolers. My sort of algorithm, if you will, that's probably a bit of a sort of over-the-top term, is put water heat sinks next to the cells, iron heat sinks next to the active moderators, end stone next to the reflectors, and then sort of fill in the gaps. That doesn't work if you want to build more effective designs, but it's quite a good way of building a really sort of standard basic design to start from. Okay, so I think apart from the iron heat sinks here, that is it. This is a 2-cluster design, so you'll actually see when this gets built up to this, the design will be cut right through the middle here, and the design will be split into 2 clusters, which means that the heat being generated by these cells and by these cells are independent, and they don't do anything with each other. They ultimately both go into the casing, of course, but otherwise they're not connected in any way. Okay, so now we go on to the second layer, I believe, and it starts again with reflectors. So let's get the reflectors down. The reflectors, I believe, go here, and this time I actually do think that I'm going to have a problem with the neutron sources, so I'm going to have to move these neutron sources. My cells actually go in here, so heavy water, oh, this is heavy water, and cells go here. So that means that I'm going to need to put I'll probably put some neutron source on the top. That would probably be the easiest way of doing it. So I'll do that at the end. Okay, so then we've got some graphite in the middle here, beryllium here. So if we count now the amount of flux that these cells are getting, these are my 4 Lu-233 nitride cells. This is getting a total of 72 from this line, another 10 from this line, that brings up to 82, and then another 22 from this line, so that's 104. So 104 in total, and the criticality of this fuel is 98, so 104, just over 98, perfect. That's the sort of thing you want. Okay, next thing we need is, I believe it's iron here. So let's go back to heat sinks. Iron goes on to here. Iron on here as well. Now in this gap here we have an opportunity to have an enderium, because this is actually an active graphite because it's adjacent to a cell underneath here and here. and these are of course active because they're next to cells as well. So Inderium needs 3 active moderators, so that is a good place for Inderium. So there's 2 Inderium for design. I think that's the only 2 in the whole design. We also have some gold, which goes in here. So gold needs to be next to 2 irons, so you can bet there's going to be another iron on top of here in the next layer. We have then some lead. Lead needs to be adjacent to iron, so that's fine. That's very good. Oops, that's not the right place there. Water goes here next to these cells, like this. And I believe that actually is the total second layer. And then the third layer is exactly the same as the first layer. So let's get that going. So starting with the endstone reflectors for our TBU cells, like this. Heavy water here, 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 and here. Graphite between the cells. And then heavy water there and there. And in fact, so I'll just go here, there we go. So that's the cell structure. And then the final sinks go in. So we have iron here, and here. Very simple. Now we know we need an iron here, and we know we need an iron here. And then finally, I think it's water here. And I think that is our total design. So that is our multi-fuel design. Now, one thing I just realized I forgot to do is I forgot to filter the cells as I went along. But we can do that pretty easy. I'll just break in here. So the first thing we need to do is we need to filter these cells. Now, these are my LU233 cells. So I'm going to just right-click with LU233 on these. So there you go. They're all filtered now with LU233. I'm then going to just break in here and filter all these with TBU. So we go TBU, 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 and then these ones up here are also TBU. And now I need to just put my heavy water back in place. Fix everything I broke. Okay, there we go. It's all filtered correctly now. There's a design filtered. Now we just need to get on top on it. Now remember, we haven't got any sources for those cells that are sitting in this section here. So we actually need to, it's not these bits that we need sources for, it's these bits that we need sources. So remember, the cells under here are not actually getting a source at the moment, so let's give them some. They all need a source in this design, so let's get some. Now this is polonium. Well, polonium doesn't matter. I'll show you how to get polonium in the next video. Okay, so there we go, there's that. Let's get some levers ready. There's that. And now we need to fill in the rest of this with glass. Of course, you don't have to use glass. You can use just reactor casing as well, but I'm just going to use glass here because it looks a bit nicer. And then round the back, the final thing we're going to do is put our ports in, our filtered ports. Now, this is pretty simple really. You just need, in this case, 4 ports because we need 2 for the TBU and 2 for the LU. So I'm just going to put them here and here. And I'm going to filter the TBU with these ones. I'm going to filter the LU with these ones. I think this is my LU box. LU, TBU, and I'm just going to put some bins down. Just make it simple. Obviously, of course, in the real game you would actually have a source for these fuels and reprocess them, but here I'm just doing it in creative and making it simple. Let's get ourselves some item ducts. Boom, 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 and boom. Servo. So servo to pull out of here, and servo to pull out of here, and then the depleted. So that's that sorted. And I think that should have worked. Yes, fantastic. And now we just put the glass in for this last bit, and hopefully our reactor will run heat negative. Well, once we turn our sources on, of course. So there you go, there's the glass. Now let's turn on all our sources. Let's turn on the TBU sources. And let's turn on our LEU sources. And that should now be running. Ooh, net cluster heating is not great. I must have made a mistake somewhere. Okay, so I found the problem. You probably noticed this, during watching the video. My sources here were just completely out of line because, of course, I originally planned to build the reactor 90 degrees from where I eventually did. So you can see these sources are not actually in line with any fuel cells. And I also forgot the sources around the back of here. So that is, it's a good thing that I still haven't fixed the fact that the reactor doesn't run when the structure is disabled. So that would have been a meltdown, but we just won't worry too much about that. We'll just get our sources in there and pretend that didn't happen. Let's just get some in there. Boom, 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 and boom. And let's get our sources on. Right click, right click, right click, right click. Sources. That's all fine. Have I destroyed the structure somewhere? Yes. That should now run. There we go. -6 heat. It's all working properly now. Okay, so I was worried there. I thought there was some horrible bug that was going to be really complicated to fix. Turns out I was just being an idiot. So yeah, that's another example. I'm pretty sure I made a similar mistake in the original video. I think in the original video I forgot to put some heat sinks down and it didn't connect the clusters up properly. In this case, I didn't put the sources in the right place, so just be really careful about that. In this case, you can see that all the sources are active. The reason that all of them need to be active, by the way, usually you don't need all of them to be active. So in this case here, you can see this cell doesn't have a source, but the reason usually that designs like this need sources on most of the cells is because of the reflectors. You'll find with a lot of designs involving reflectors, you need sources on all of the cells to get enough flux into the system. But you can see now it's working as predicted. You can compare this to the planner JSON when you load it up into the planner, and you can see here that we've got our TBU, and that's working brilliantly, and that's connected to all the cells that have TBU, and we've also got our LU233 ports that are working nicely as well. They've all hooked up, and all the cells are have got the right fuels, and it's all linked up in the correct way. So that's an example of, first of all, reflectors in practice, and also multi-fuel designs in practice. It's a very basic one, as I said, using some cheap fuels. And in the next video, we will look at how to get polonium, and also one thing that I was thinking about there, how to get TBU. We haven't talked about how to get TBU yet, because TBU is no longer obtained by just clumping together thorium-232. So in NuclearCraft, there is now no such thing as thorium-233. It's just called thorium. There is just thorium ingots. There's no more thorium-230, effectively. If you look at the Wikipedia article about thorium, you'll see that the abundance of thorium-232 is almost 100% of the thorium in the crust, and thorium-230 is now not in NuclearCraft anymore at all. And thorium needs to be turned into TBU in the following way. You need to put it into an irradiator. Fission irradiator turns it into protactinium-enriched thorium dust, and then this gets turned into TBU via the decay hastener. And the irradiator is also crucial in producing polonium from bismuth, and bismuth is obtained from uranium-233 in the decay hastener. So a few recipes there involving the irradiator, and that's what the next video is going to be about. It's going to be about the irradiator. So I'll see you in that video. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. Again, as ever, if you've got any questions in the comments, or join the Discord server. We've got just a silly number of members now. I think it's like 5,500. It's really buzzing. We've also got some awesome reactor calculator and solver and optimizer tools. One of them's online, and two of them are sort of runnable as an executable. So check them out if you come into the Discord server. They're made by some incredibly clever guys, and I think you'll love them. You can also keep track of the progress of QMD, which is an add-on for NuclearCraft, adding particle accelerators, and also Trinity, which is an add-on adding nuclear explosions and other cool stuff. So, and there's also another channel for the development of a mod pack involving NuclearCraft by one of our most vocal members, which you can keep up to date with as well. So lots of cool stuff going on, and in the next video we'll continue looking at the new features in the Overhaul. Thank you all very much for watching. See you next time.